Exercise.
Yep. Hello. We are live right now, and hello everyone. This is DevKami, episode 13, and we have a new lineup today with Michael and Manju. So introduce yourself, guys.
And you go ahead first.
Yeah, my name is Manjunath. I'm a software engineer. Do we need to say the company name?
No, whatever you want to say, man.
I'm a software engineer, so basically into architecture, any kind of programming except Microsoft. Yeah.
What's wrong with Microsoft? And
I just didn't start to like VB script, the VB6. So since that's the time I started at Microsoft. So until now, I haven't touched any Microsoft programming. Yeah, so mainly open source.
So that's about it.
Yep, that's
okay. Then it's Michael's turn.
Hello everybody, Michael Lau here. Currently lead SRE for Moneyline. Beginner in Go and try to learn more Go and get more goals into practice. And of course, the hard one, how they actually do proper unit tests or TDD tests or code. That's always something I struggle.
Yep. And Michael is a DevOps guru.
No, academic.
So if you have any question or stuff about DevOps and stuff, you can find out Michael on Facebook.
HashiCorp super fan.
Yeah, HashiCorp. He's a HashiCorp guy in Malaysia. So that's about it for introduction.
Yeah.
Okay. As usual, we should talk about like what is going to happen next week, and the only thing that is happening next week is Christmas. So there is no tech meetup as far as I know. And yeah, enjoy, guys. And the topic for
are we gonna have Makan edition? Apparently, I have Monday off as well. So
I'm all right with it.
All right, Makan trip.
Yeah, Makan trip somewhere like KL. I don't know. It's actually a very good time to visit KL during festive season because most people are away.
Yes.
So yeah. And this week we are supposed to talk about Uncle Bob's recent article, The Unoffended. The Unoffended. But since Manju is a person that is very well prepared, so we'll let him talk about like whatever that he has prepared. So Manju.
So I'm just going to share my recent experience working in a startup about the decision making. So the thing came up during because it's a startup, you're only like 2 developers, right? The topic came out was from one of the solution architect was to we have a monolithic system, and we were asked to do microservice, means start to isolate the system right away now and start to work on it. So I love microservices, but the thing is we are only 2 developers. So my question to my other teammate was, is it the right time to do, or is it the right thing to do right now? But we were constantly asked the question like, yes, we have to do, and we also need to come up with the isolated services with the architecture diagram, application diagram, system architecture, cloud architecture, like all kinds of diagram. And so we were keep thinking about it, what to. Well, I respect his decision, but the question is how we can justify him that this is not the right time to do, or I think it's not the right thing to do. So yeah, I still don't have answers yet, but I need to respect his decision. But we also need to come up with a justification. That's something quite hard. I'm still learning how to justify that.
But is he willing to at least take put it into discussion or debate, or is it like, okay, do it, and
I think because maybe if it's a face-to-face, it's easy to talk. If it's a remote, if they are in a remote place, it's quite difficult.
Oh, so yeah, it's remote. That's always a challenge.
Yeah, I think that's also creates a lot of confusion. Also, there's no connection, so they feel like not putting much effort.
I think the problem with a lot of the time online conversation, especially text-based, is that we tend to associate certain emotion to the whatever text we put up. So they is more prone to, I don't know, argument because of misunderstanding. I don't know.
My question is like this. Usually, this tech-led solution architect come from big corporations designing the big architecture. Now, you suddenly come to a startup and you try to impose the same set of rules. So for me, that's a bit, because in microservices architecture, in startup, usually you don't come up with the architecture design and like waterfall model, you design the architecture, go implement it, then only after 3-4 months you see the results.
So is this a new product, or is the business model well known already? Is the domain well known, or
no?
That's still in the iterative stage.
Yeah, actually, that's my fear. Just one of the justification was, until we get to know the entire domain model, probably we don't do it now.
Yeah, because I mean, to do a proper microservice, remember our time when we just try to do a simple API, just 2 APIs. I call you, you call me, I call you back. So even a simple thing just like that, where we don't understand it very well, it already causes you problems. So imagine microservice where as what they say, instead of just one monolithic poop, you get a lot of micro poops to handle.
I think it comes down to whether it's if he's thinking, if he thinks that it's a problem to solve, or it's actually because he just liked the idea of microservice. Because if it's the latter, then it might be a bit harder to sway from, because it might be just because it's preference.
From my feeling, it feels like since it's a buzzword, someone less microservices. I also want to do it. We also want to do it. But
did he recently join the organization, or was he like part of because the company has been running for a while, right?
Yeah. I don't know about that. I'm still like 2-3 months old in this company. So.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, I guess as I'm preparing this slides for this, the state of DevOps. So one of the important things, they call it the Western organizational culture, is that you need to have a good organization will be like highly cooperative, rather than something like something where your novelty is crushed and there's like low cooperation, top down kind of instructions. So I mean, I guess that might be one question to ask, especially since the business model is not known. It's probably better to be iterative to try to figure out what the heck is the business model before you actually.
Another question is, since the company is the main domain into like automotive, there are a lot of products, right? Eventually, they're all going to share some code bases. So probably we're going to share some services across all of them. So without knowing the entire domain model, I think it's difficult to start doing it now. And the other question I want to ask was, I forgot.
No, you're supposed to tell us stuff, not asking questions.
Other question was, one of the comment came was, we need to make our entire infrastructure cloud agnostic. So
what does that even mean?
Really,
use HashiCorp.
Everywhere, DigitalOcean, AWS, Azure.
Yeah, I think as long as you are using any infrastructure as a service, right? But nowadays, even most of the platform as a service is still pretty portable. I'm not sure what is pretty much cloud agnostic, unless you're specifically using like certain product, like I don't know, Bigtable or
DB.
DynamoDB.
actually, I was actually discussing this one with the David. David Chen. He raised one good point. Yeah, some certain things we can make cloud agnostic, but the stateful things like database, like S3, they are different in different providers, right? It's difficult to migrate them.
Yeah. So I mean, the question is, in business wise, are they planning to like sell the service to be run on multiple platforms? I mean, what is the business case or what is the business objective? Because I mean, of course, it can be done, but you may not be fully utilizing the the platform. So just like your sort of like ORM, once you choose a database, you do not change your database anymore. In practice, of course, it's nice that you can be portable, but
Hey, Tristan.
In practice, you don't do that.
Yeah, I think
sorry, I'm late.
Yeah,
hey, Tristan.
Hey,
we're glad to have you.
Are you offended yet by my tardiness?
Yeah, we are not offended yet. We haven't actually touched the point yet.
No, we have Malaysian time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think,
there you go.
yeah. So my intention is, yeah, I have experience doing microservices before, but I'm not ready yet to do it now. So probably need to understand the complete domain model. And so based on that, the thing is the reason I need to justify, I did go through a lot of articles. So I kind of sum up some of the things I can share with you guys. I can share my screen, right?
Yeah,
sure. Just make sure you're sharing the right screen.
Yeah.
Don't get offended.
Give me a second.
So I think Manju actually did it right. He did all the research and stuff, so he tried to prove.
Oh, that this is not for this talk, but I like kind of. Can you guys share my screen?
Yeah.
I'm just showing my private thing, so it's fine. So
you're very well prepared.
Yeah, I was going to say, am I still at the DevKami podcast?
Yeah. This is from an website. So here's the question. Before I start sharing, have you guys used this tool called Coda?
Nope.
Quite nice. You can check it out.
Is this like sharing? I mean, is it like sort of a Google Docs kind of thing? Where
it's a best way to put it is Docs plus spreadsheet together.
Okay, nice. Oh yeah, I think you did mention it in the engineers.my, right? I think I looked at it.
It's quite nice. So because I'm always looking for tools, something like Confluence. Like left side, I can see the menu. Right?
True. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I like this one.
So yeah, Markdown, I presume.
It's like a document.
So in order to prove your point, you should write some really long article and stuff to prove it.
One of the misunderstanding we all have, I don't know, this is my opinion, that people they want to do microservice because they want to scale, right?
Yeah.
I think not many people know why they're doing it. Yeah. So just 2 days ago, I read one very good article. The reason why you need to do microservice, not because you want to scale horizontal like infrastructure. The reason people do because of engineering management challenges. I like that word, engineering management challenges.
So does that mean that you do microservices when the bridge is there to cross? Is that what you're saying? Like you only cross the bridge when you get to it, so you only do microservices when there's the need for microservices.
Yeah, probably, maybe the point. So one of the things that what I read is like it's nothing to do with how you scale, how you're going to implement. It's all about defining the service boundaries. I think you can see the second point between the teams and letting them work independently. So team will need to communicate less and can move quickly. That's the whole point why you want to do microservice. Does it make sense to you guys? Because I think that's the fact why we need to do. For example, a very good example is, let's say currently I have a monolithic system, right? Now we are 2 developers. Assume that eventually we want to deploy in another country. We add another 6 developers. So we are total 8 developers working on the same monolithic system on one pipeline. And we are developing features for 2 countries. So let's say another team push something to production and it breaks the pipeline, basically breaks everywhere. So basically it's not scalable because now everyone is waiting for other guys to fix it.
Yeah.
So that's That's the reason why you want to do microservice, because you can eventually isolate the system so that they can work independently as a team. Then you can scale them.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, if you remember last time when we, way back then in Kalis, when we had like all different teams in different countries, when you just split it on the functional, like, okay, you just do UI, and here in KL we do infra and the back end. That's very hard to move independently, right? Because like I pay my attention here, then it's like neglecting the other countries in there. So the nice thing, at least again organization wise, is that if they are responsible end to end, from the infra all the way to design and all the pieces in there, all you have to do is talk to them through REST API or whatever kind of stuff. Then it's much easier to coordinate, and even of I guess things like, let's say, ownership. Then it's like, hey, you write that piece, you run it, so you don't have to wait for us to decide. And again, you can probably iterate, and they probably have, let's say, for local knowledge, you will also even know better. Like, okay, Thailand, they like more nicer graphics kind of stuff rather than a lot of text kind of stuff. So yeah, okay, go ahead and implement it. You know the market better.
It's basically nothing to do with the code or infrastructure. It's mostly management challenge.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the hard part, right? The infra part is at least these days, is the easier part. The humans, that is your bottleneck.
So it goes back to try to steer it back to in a bit of a topic, like this is how we resolve conflict in terms of when nobody reach a common agreement to the decision. So
are you asking if for us to go back to the topic, and so we'll share something about?
No, I mean it's it also ties back to I think Michael trying to do. I in a way, like, I'm pretty much prefer that method, like where if you want it, just you take ownership of it.
No, so the way we would usually resolve conflict is by drawing a graph, like pros and cons, because usually if you have a very convincing artifact to use, then it's like everyone is on the same page, right? Most of the time, arguments are between people are because they are going for the same reason, which is to move the company forward, or all the good reasons. They're just not on the same page on how to go about it. So if you have a shared brain space, then it makes it easier. So I'll share my screen because I have a copy of a document. Apparently it's lost. It's by Kent Beck, who is who was one of the signatories of the Agile Manifesto. So how do I share my screen? Oh yeah, here. Okay. Share.
Manju, you just show your face again.
Yes, you have to. So this is I'll put it on the show notes as well. Oh, here you go. So this is the speaking of the microservices or not microservices in the beginning, right? And this is like usually in the beginning when you're a startup or when you're starting a greenfield project. Should I go for a microservice approach, or should I just put everything together monolithic? Lean people will say, oh, do everything or anything that can get you into market quickly. More seasoned developers will say you have to do things right, and then you have to do the right things and all of these things, right?
I think the problem with doing the right, the challenging part of doing the right thing is, especially in the early phase of the, especially a startup, is you do a lot of iterations.
Correct.
So of course you have to do it right, but it's not to be like really tightly coupled.
Correct. Exactly. This is actually so I will share this document in the show notes. It's also on the Slack channel if you're there. This is exactly the argument that Kent Beck was going about, is that if you see the graph, there is a cost for modularity, and then there is also the cost for connected, like monolithic architecture where everything in the kitchen sink is all mashed together. And initially, if you'll see with less features, actually connected architectures will be faster because everything is in the global state. It's easy to add new features. It's easy to deploy. Everything is, you know how everything is interconnected. So it's very, very fast to move. But there comes a tipping point the amount of your features where all of that connectedness, all of that spaghettiness becomes a debt. And so that is when you start thinking about and transitioning into thinking about modular code, not just about like code and also about like microservices, like programs that are self-contained and that you can that are not affected with each other. When something goes down, this is not affected, and that's when the cost of maintaining a modular system is more or less flat. So it's a very interesting article. Like I mentioned, Kent Beck was the signatory of Agile Manifesto for Agile software development, so he knows what he's talking about. It's a pros and cons. It really depends on the environment when you decide whether you should go for microservices first or should you go for monolithic first. It depends on the size of your code base. It depends on where you are in the development cycle. And you'll notice as well, as a good segue, probably this name, Robert Martin, also known as Uncle Bob. So I don't know where you were in the discussion, but this name will probably pop up later.
It's actually pop out at the introduction. So,
cool.
so I actually, in a way, did a brief about like the article that Uncle Bob published this week.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you've already discussed that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so these people know what they're talking about. I'll share the link to the article later in the show notes. That's my rant. We don't have swimming to.
Can I continue with what I was left with?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me share my screen again.
Manju, I guess in terms of, let's say, discussing or seeing like which points are strongly held or not, I think I've read somewhere where it says, okay, for certain points, you can ask the other participant to say like, okay, how strongly you feel about this particular topic. Because sometimes they might say they don't agree, but actually it's not a very strong disagree kind of stuff. So you probably only want to, I guess, negotiate on the one where they really feel strongly disagree.
Yeah, I think one of the problems we had was we did not communicate with him properly. That means the teams were lost. So they misunderstood that we didn't want to do, and that we didn't want to do microservice, and they didn't get proper communication message. So that's why they were like, okay, we're not going to help you guys.
What?
Not going to help you, but I think one of the mistakes we did was not communicating directly, means consistently. So that's the big problem. So we need to consistently talk to them. Then at least we know, we agree and we disagree, but at least there's a communication going around why we are not willing to do. And at least they get the reason why. Otherwise, they would keep wondering what we are doing without updating anything to them. So yeah, I think communication is one of the key things.
But I mean, when you're discussing, are you like face to face on Skype, or is it like through Slack or email or
email?
Yeah, probably for this, so you probably want to get them face to face at least.
I think face to face is very useful.
Yeah,
because I think it happened to a lot of even on chat room sometimes it's because I'm repeating myself again, like because there is no emotion, so we tend to associate whatever that is in our mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I read somewhere as well called stubborn solo, means they think they are the best. They don't agree with any other solution. So I don't know how to convince that kind of people.
I think just continuous communication.
Yeah, I think that would help. Yeah,
and also
get on call with them.
Yeah. Also, I think some people they need to warm up a bit because, in my opinion, some people they are sometimes a bit worried that worried about how they are being threatened by you or something like that. But like by warming up, the barrier will gradually melt down, and they'll be more susceptible to certain suggestion once the trust is there. Or willing to trust.
Yeah, when they start to trust each other, I think that would help. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something we learned back when we were doing support at IBM is how to have empathy. So try to repeat back what the guy you're communicating with, yeah, in your own words, so
Yeah,
that they can see that you at least trying to understand what they have before you bring your own points up. Of course.
yeah, yeah. So still learning how to communicate.
Everybody is still learning.
Yeah, that's always the hard part. Humans.
And not to get how to get unoffended as well. That's a bit out actually.
Yeah, but the main problem is some people, they stick with their decision. They just don't want to hear other people's decision. So that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Because they're in the senior position. So how do we convince them that at least our point is reasonable than their point without offending them?
Yeah. I think I'm not sure if
I mean, do we need to come up with a justification that their point is wrong? Because if you tell them wrong, then yeah, they definitely feel offended.
yeah, because I think right now is the feeling that they have is you're the competitor.
Yeah.
And yeah, and normally, like even for me, I'll in a way struggle a bit. So to let you, I mean, let you in or allow whatever suggestion that you have. So I don't know. I'm not sure because how about you, Tristan? You work. I think you're more familiar with working with a lot of people.
What about it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mentioned it can be difficult to convince people, especially if they're really on like very different mindset as you are from. The assumption, of course, there is that we are all going towards the same goal, which is to help improve whatever it is that we're doing. It's just a difference in how to get there. And usually, the more successful ways would be to have data. It's because data or like having empirical evidence is quite difficult to argue against, especially if it's just about the interpretation. But then it depends on, again, if the data says it's leaning towards this particular opinion, then you're more likely to convince the other party that, hey, this is where we should go.
I think you raised a good point. Common goal, right? So
Yeah.
in the process of convincing other people, we forget that way we plan to go. So we forget the goal, then it becomes very personal.
Yep.
Then it doesn't get anywhere.
That is why communication is very important.
Yeah. So I think we just need to remind during the conversation, need to remind that, hey, this is our common goal.
I think actually Manju did it right by like you actually did all the research and put them down into a document and stuff. But I think one thing that is in a way, like especially in negotiation, it's actually not important. For me, it's a personal opinion. It's not important. What call it? Being right is not actually important. I think what very important similarly rhymes with what Tristan said just now is how it will bring them value and or how it will address their pain point. I mean, there must be some sort of association with whatever the problems or whatever interests for these people. I mean, if you're just saying like I'm right, it's pretty much like I don't know, like pretty much personal.
Yeah. Yeah. See, meaning, from my opinion, what I see is even in Agile, right? It's one of the big challenge. I like Agile, but the thing I don't like about Agile is the way it's been practiced. It means everyone is abusing. So in the Agile also same important thing is your customer, right? So one of the challenge I have is that when I start to implement a story, my main challenge is nothing is communicated to customer. So me and other developers, we are start implementing based on our own assumption, and it goes to production. Then the customer says, "Hey, this is not I wanted." So, and my point to the other developers is like this: "Hey, have you talked to the customer?" I said, "No." Then can we talk before implementing? It's okay. We don't need to because we make our own decision. We can convince them later. So this is one of the challenges I have because for me, most of the time it's all about communication and the people. It's nothing to do with the coding, programming. Yeah, that's
exactly. Especially when someone asks, like, I do exactly what you're doing. I code. I put in the hours. Why am I not a senior developer? And that is actually, I think, defining line between when you start to call yourself as a senior or start getting to that particular level, is that it's not really about the code, like you said. It's more about how do you interact with people, how do you gather information, how do you make sure that everyone goes together towards a common goal. And I think that is where, like that's when you cross that line, that is when I think the seniority starts coming in.
Yeah.
I think when you realize that the technology part, the code part is just it's not the end, it's the means to the end. The end is the problem that you're supposed to solve.
The end in the end is about building value, right? So, for example, if you are a carpenter, right, you have skills to like hammer nails and to create those points and to sand and polish wood. You have those skills, yes, but will you be building the correct furniture that your client is asking for? That takes a different kind of skill, and that separates the foreman from the carpenters who might know more about carpentry but wouldn't know about how do you decide between marble versus pseudo marble, or just a sheen on top of cement, for example, depending on the client's budget, right? So all of these decisions they're a different skill, and these are the things that the conflict resolution is also the same as about like negotiation, about people, dealing with people and dealing with information gathering and these things. And I pasted the link in the Slack channel as well. This is about because we were talking about talking to people, right? And you mentioned about some people just don't understand, and we are, even though we're going towards the same goal. And what works well for me with convincing people is by bringing them together with me using a story, and having a story, like talking about what happened before, or like having a metaphor in mind. They've been very, very useful for me. And this type of research, for example, that I just linked to, I'll share it again on the show notes, says that when you tell a story, the brain of yourself and the person that you're talking to, or the audience, if you're talking to a lot of people, they're actually synced. And because they're actually experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing, and so it's a lot easier for you to make them feel what you're feeling. So basically putting both of you together on the same page, and makes it easier for conflict resolution, because again, both of you are moving towards the same goal, which is to improve something. It's just a different way of approach. And so if you're able to because right now we don't have mind-to-mind, brain-to-brain communication, so the best way you can do that is to tell the story, get your brain synced up, be on the same page, and then they will understand your point of view, and they can make a better decision as well.
Another question I want to raise is some of the team members are very quiet, and so they don't communicate at all. How do we get them to talk more? That's a challenge.
Oh, sorry, what was the question? I thought you were just saying some of the team members are very quiet and they don't want to talk.
How do you make sure everybody communicates?
Yeah, because without communicating, we don't know what they feel or what their opinion.
So recently, we just had this in the companies. Well, not recently, like in the past year or two, is to have the one-on-ones where it becomes a habit that you talk to people, because some people just won't speak up because that's just how they are. Like they don't want to. They're not extroverted in the sense that they thrive on conflict. That, oh, this is my idea and I will defend it. So they're not that competitive. It's like I'll just go along with whatever other people are saying and use it. in that case, you lose their input because they're not going to go against the flow, even though they might have a good idea. And so the one-on-ones is more like you get to talk to them, concerns, and it's never about arguing, or it's never about talking about different opinions. It's more like what do you feel about this, or what do you think about this? And since it becomes a habit, then it's like brushing your teeth. You don't think about it anymore. You know, oh, okay, I'm about to sleep. I brush my teeth and then I go to sleep.
I think it's sort of like the comfort zone of not speaking out is like muscle memory. Once you get used to it, it's like you'll be more keen on communicating more. You know.
I think it's about like crafting the environment such that it's easy for them to do it.
It's the culture in a way. It's like the culture as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think again, going back to as let's say someone senior in your company, it's like because someone who's senior has the authority and has more power or more influence in the team, then it falls into this person to not only lead technically but also lead in terms of culture. Like how do you do PRs, for example, pull requests? Is it more about style changes, oh there's a space here, or is there more about talking about design and architecture and and asking about how can we make this better, instead of just, oh, let's you forgot a space here, or oh, we do kebab case in this particular section, which is good in a sense, like in the beginning, because that's, you train people about, like, you speak up to someone else with small things, and maybe they're just trying their luck, right? Like, okay, let's see if this gets in. But eventually, how do you create that environment that guides them towards a positive sense of conflict, that, hey, this is how you did it, I think it can be done better, how do I present that to you?
But in certain cases, some people, they dictate it. This is how we should be doing. We all should be doing, like dictators.
I mean, that's probably their style, right? Now, the question there is that something that is good for people? Because some people thrive on being dictated on. Like,
but they say, I don't care what my team members think about it. This is how I want you guys to do it, and we should do it.
I think there should be some interest involved, right? So, like, let's say, like, oh, if it's gonna cost you money and stuff, should it be a concern to them? Like, even though, like, oh, just scrape all the codes and redo it just for the sake of it. I mean, a company doesn't, especially a startup, doesn't necessarily have unlimited resources.
Yeah, and also depends on the phase of the project. Like, if this is crunch time, and this has happened before in the company as well, if it's crunch time, then I would rather have someone just tell me this one, this, because I want to focus on fixing things, right? Like, we're launching in 2 days. I want, like, tell me what to do, because I don't have time to think about it. And sometimes that's just more efficient, like having a command and control structure instead of a very democratic structure where everyone, like, we talk about making sure that we're not taking on technical debt.
If it's a temporary, it makes sense. But if it's the same all day along, what happens?
I don't know. If nobody is doing it, you do it. If nobody is being the facilitator, or nobody is leading, then you do it. And
yeah, again, when this goes on long, it's because the environment was enabling them to do it. It's because either nobody's speaking up, or like people just accepted that this is how it is. And so sometimes bringing in new talent with fresh eyes will allow people to see what have we been doing, right? Because people with fresh eyes will see the blind spots that has been there for a long time.
Outside,
so which is why consultants rake in a lot of money, because this is basically asking someone outside to tell you things that you know are true, but you just wouldn't admit to it, right? Yeah. So that's what we paid them for. I'm just kidding, of course. It's half meant joke, but
it's a good point. Outside perspective is always good.
I think it all goes down to like similar to the point is like Tristan says, it's getting used to communicating. I think what happened right now is everyone in the organization is still not used to it. So
or it's just everyone in the organization just accepted that this is the way it is,
yeah,
and so there is no like people generally just don't like change. I've seen this quote somewhere on Facebook, people sharing saying people want progress but they don't want change, and so that's where the that's the when an organization stagnates like this, it's because they are at that point where they can't move forward and they don't want they don't want to move back but they can't move forward, so it's like an unstable um, like an unstable stability zone. Like if you nudge them forward and then it increases momentum forward, right? So it's up to whoever wants to make the change to like nudge that particular stability to so that it actually goes progress. It's very abstract. I lost my own train of thought there, but it again it's the I believe in the intrinsic goodness of people, and so they say I'm too optimistic about people and I'm too trusting, but I believe that people generally want to go for the good or the common good of the company or whatever argument there is, and so I believe that when there is this kind of conflict, it's more because the environment is making them behave like that. So the best way to get out of this situation is to somehow change the environment. Maybe move rooms, move the team to a different room. Maybe the power dynamic might be different because people are seated differently. Maybe that will be the change that causes that becomes a catalyst for that particular movement outside of that unstable stability zone. There's a physics term for that. I will look that up. Wait.
Equilibrium.
It is equilibrium, but there is this thing in physics where you have your valley, but before that valley, you have another small valley, but that is not the lowest possible state.
Oh, I have no idea what that.
Wait, let me find that.
Is it local minima?
Yeah, local. Well, not
okay.
local minimum, but it's close with.
I think yeah. Or you follow because actually Tristan, I found out about Tristan actually ran a very good program that you can replicate. It's called Lunch Relay.
Yeah, Lunch Roulette. Yeah. Oh, sorry. How do you pronounce it? I pronounce it.
I don't know. I just call it Relay. I have no idea how it's supposed to be pronounced.
Roulette.
Yeah.
Roulette. Okay.
How does that work? I'm curious.
Oh, so it ran for a few weeks in the company until I stopped running it. So anyone who joins the room becomes part of the pool, and every Monday and Thursday, the bot will pair people up and give them like 3 questions if they don't have anything to talk about. For example, like a hint. They don't have to follow asking the questions, but they can use the questions or they can just talk about anything else. And basically, if you're paired, then you have to go out and have lunch together and talk about, like, if you're from finance and you're from technology, then you get to talk about whatever it is that you haven't talked about because of the nature of the department. You're not usually going to be talking with each other unless it has to deal with your department, right? So you don't get to know the other person personally. And after lunchtime, you have to post in the channel pictures of you having lunch. So that's generally the idea of lunch.
So you cannot cheat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think I need to do that. Our company has too many people. I still cannot remember some of them.
Yeah,
cool.
that was the reason why I made it, because in Mind Valley, we're almost like 200 now, and I remember the time when I could memorize everyone's names and faces, and I had lunch with each of them, and then now it's just like, oh, okay, new faces every month or two, and I don't even know their names, and I don't even know how to if they come to the office, I wouldn't know if they're for an interview or are they actually working there, or I'm not sure. So I don't know them. That's why it's partly also a way for me to know other people without having to. So it's so strange because when a bot, like a third party bot, inorganic thing, says you two have lunch together, it's like, oh, okay, I guess we have to have lunch together because the robot says we have to have lunch together, right? It becomes very objective. Like, okay, I have no choice. Let's go lunch.
Yeah, you don't have the awkwardness. Like, oh, hey, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Where's the code? I need to introduce this to my HR.
There are already pre-made Slack bots, but I just wanted. So it's partly also because I wanted to learn about the Slack API. So I just made a small bot as a project. But there are Slack bots that are more like well made, more features, more configurable.
Yeah. You can do that, can't you? And there'll be a product, so you guys can pivot to that business.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Oh yeah, Manju, so you got to fly to Australia. Let's go for lunch.
So anything we want to add on? I don't know.
Okay, so I found it. It's you're not at the ground state. So I need to find out the other, the pseudo ground state. I just need to find that term.
Pseudo ground state.
You know, so in the ground state, it's like the lowest possible energy level of an object. Like, for example, if you're on the valley and the ball is there at the minimum of the valley, then there's no potential energy, right? Because you're on the ground. But if you're on a crevice on the cliff, the ball is stable, but it's not at the ground state. So it's stable, but when you move it to a certain direction, then it will move again. So this was about the what I was talking about when you have a steady state in your organization. So it's stagnating in the culture because the environment is enabling that particular culture. But people generally want to move forward and have progress. So you just want to change the environment a little, nudge that ball until it falls down, and make sure that things actually start moving in the direction that you want.
Sure. We're at the awkward silence now.
Physics time, so I'm listening.
Sorry, but I saw that Manju had a lot of things on that document. Sorry if we keep interrupting you.
No, it's the same. The article I shared actually, because I just so I can just share maybe nothing important in that. Maybe
it's very important. It's your work, man.
I'll share it again. So I think everyone knows those pointers already.
Yeah.
So yeah, one important thing I like was engineering management challenges. That's the reason why we go towards microservices.
Well, he seems to wrote a book there.
No, it's just a copy paste from that article. The other thing was the serverless. Because question was okay, because serverless also considered as microservice, right? And most of the people don't know the use case of when to use serverless. You can't use it everywhere you want, right? If it doesn't suit your application, you don't know.
No. Depends on your credit card's limits, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if you have more credit card, more money in the credit card, then you can write more services. Yeah. Because we still one of the pointers I note down in that one was stateless services can be a great opportunity for use serverless, meaning during iFlix time, right, when there were a lot of serverless functions, it makes sense to them because they had data, everything inside the S3 Redshift. So you basically build around services around these data points, then it makes sense to use serverless. But if your database is outside somewhere, basically doesn't make sense to use serverless with the database at all. That's meant to be for stateless, right?
Yes, well, because it's stateless, then you don't need to save anything.
Yeah, I think the point of stateless is very easy and safe to scale.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the point of serverless is it's transferring of responsibility. Because now you don't state, you now rely on the input to make sure that their input is actually correct, instead of you like sharing that part of responsibility where, okay, there's no input here, I need to make, there is minimal input, and so I have to make a decision based on previous inputs that you had. And again, there's no free lunch in these things. It's just a reorganization of responsibility of the parts.
Yeah, I think the article is quite nice. It's another point in that article was cache, because the reason why we want to use sometimes the reason we want to use microservices, because we want things and just transfer the state, right? I mean the responsibility, but some people use it in the wrong way.
Maybe in a way that they don't fully understand. And so they misuse it.
The other point was serverless is useful when you do offline processing, when latency is another problem for you. Yeah, so that's one of the points there, offline processing of the data. So if something is really, really important, better go with a service, like a microservice, rather than serverless. And the other point was independence. So when you do microservice, it becomes autonomous teams, right? You have independent teams. So the important thing we discussed just now is the communication. If you don't communicate each other, then everyone starts to build their own authentication, own CI/CD, own monitoring tools. So it's important they communicate, even though they are autonomous teams, but they all should communicate. Otherwise, everyone building their own stuff. And you have big dashboard to measure all your services and the tracing. So, my point, or what I felt is, if I really want to isolate all my stuff right now, it adds cost to, means you need more developers, it adds cost to infrastructure, monitoring, tracing. I don't know.
So basically, you mean there's more moving parts, and maintaining moving parts take resources.
So do you have an army to maintain that? No, we don't have. So there's no point going and doing it, right? Yeah, so that is the point. Other point, one of the thing I want to share was, if you see this one also I read somewhere, called strangler pattern. I never heard that before, but it's interesting. It's basically what it does is, let's say this is your monolithic. You take out one service out of it, make a service out of it. There's a team maintaining it. They have their own pipeline. So basically, it's transform, exist, eliminate. You create, but your old code still exists. Then switch to the new one. When the new one is stable, then delete the old one. Something like that. Yeah, so it's called strangler pattern.
So this pattern reminds me of the ship of Theseus paradox. So if you don't mind, while you're if you don't mind, I'll explain the paradoxes. So there's a ship, right? And it's an old ship, and so over the years, builders have been replacing like parts of the ship, like planks, the wood, the mast, sails, and after like maybe 10, 15 years, they've replaced everything in the ship. And the question is it still the same ship? Right? So that's the paradox. That's what.
And also the parts that you took out, when they use the rest of the parts to build another ship, is that considered the same ship as well?
Right. Yeah, it's exactly that. Now, like, which one is the ship of Theseus?
Hey, before that, I have a question. So my analogy to going microservice and not going microservice is like this. Now I have a ship that can carry 20 people, but now we only have 5 people. So I know this ship can carry 20 people, right? Now, someone asked me to build, hey, let's go microservice, build a big one. I mean, we foresee like 3-4 years from now. Why don't we build a ship that can carry 100 people in the future? So my question here is, we have a ship that can carry 20 people. Right now, we only have 5 people, right? And I know for at least another 1-2 years, I can still use this ship to carry another 15 people. So do you want to still use the old ship, or you want to build a big ship that can carry like 100 people, but 5 years down the road?
So this one, I would ask them to go on an MBA, because this is this is a logistics
No,
problem. No, really, it is about inventory, right? Like, especially when you're designing warehouses.
did you get the point right?
Yeah, I did it. I did
Yeah.
get the point.
I think it's. I mean, if I want to put it this way, it's a bit of over. If you plan too much for the future, it's over engineered.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, I don't want to maintain codes that I wrote 5 years ago.
Yeah. Over the time they evolve anyway.
Probably some ideas that you think is really nice and you spend a lot of time and effort doing it right now might be easily replaced in the future. I'm not sure. Yeah, it depends. It depends on like how much easier it is to do like the extra work.
You assume that you spend a lot of time on building that, then suddenly a new tool comes up that does everything.
Yeah, it happens to me as well.
Yeah, don't over engineer like me.
Yeah.
Think too much.
Yeah, especially nowadays, people are writing codes for us like that we can easily just adapt. I don't know. It's not going too extreme as it don't write anything and just wait for things to come, but
Yeah.
But don't do too much of over engineering as well.
Yeah.
Of course, the question is, if you're going to graph that, where is the intersection point? And so where do you actually, where is that point when you say you over engineer or like engineer just enough for your situation?
You need to apply gradient descent for that.
Yeah, I think like the one we discussed before, maybe short-term goals. Yeah, if you write down the short-term goals, then work on it instead of big goals. Yeah.
So, there's something that I really saw was very useful when I was doing my business studies. That especially in business, they love these frameworks. So I don't know if you remember the fishbone diagram, SWOT analysis, all of these frameworks. There's a lot more in business school about frameworks, and I find that it's because people want to categorize things, and they categorize the categorizations about like lines, and like where do you cross the line basically. And whenever you're talking to people, by giving them these lines, right? Like where is the point when over engineering is over engineering or just enough engineering? Where is the point where you do microservices versus a monolithic architecture? You are indirectly creating a categorization and indirectly creating a framework that other people can understand. Because for some reason we're built like that. Like, this is the box. This is the box. If you move the object from here to here, this is a different container. And so that's why when I asked, for example, where is that point, then it becomes clear to everyone. We know there is this categorization between over engineering and just enough engineering. Now all we need to talk about is where's the line. And so it's a lot less of like we already came into the same page for majority of the thing that we're discussing. Now it's more about the fine details of like a small section of the problem that we're having a conflict about, and it becomes easier. The smaller the problem, usually it's easier to resolve that particular conflict.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good point. Yeah, but majority of the time the conversation gets diverted, and they say, "This is what we're going to do. I don't care." So we want the microservice. It's difficult, but that's a good point. Yeah, but I think the other problem is to maybe you need to talk more.
Yeah.
Also, consider why is this person really believing that this is the way to go? Because maybe
reason is
actually correct. Like maybe you're the one who's not seeing the other side.
Yeah. And you actually probably you should apply strangler pattern in communication.
Strangle myself.
Yeah. But no, gradually replace his ideas.
Yeah. No, assume that you work in a big corporation where you develop all the architecture diagram, system diagram, and now you're in a company where your job is to do that, right? Now, if you don't do that, and the small teams are telling that it's not right time to do the microservice, and his job is to come up with the complete architecture for entire organization. So they need to convince their boss, right?
Well, it depends really, because at least how I would approach this is that if I'm in charge of the architecture of the whole system, then I need to know the rest of the system. Like it's my job to gather information, and the less information I get, the worse my decision is. I've always mentioned this to people like, who ask me for advice, is that your decision is only as good as the information you got to make that decision, right? So the better your information, the better your decision, the better your potential decisions would be. And the less information you have to make that decision, it's not going to be as good. So if you're an architect that doesn't want to even consider other people's like opinions or their whatever their thoughts are, I don't think you'll be doing a good job. That said, maybe this person had already factored that in, and this person needs to actually communicate back and at least acknowledge, yes, I've seen your point of view. This is the reason why I think it's not going to work. It's because I have a different set of information that might not be available to you. And so let's talk about it and let's bring ourselves together. And
try not to be too bitter, and
Yeah.
and also condescending when it fails and stuff, because in the end, the goal is the same. Everybody wants the company or the business to thrive.
oh, okay, I thought it's all the same. It's the architect's fault.
No, I mean,
You always blame the person.
yeah, we play, but like professionally, we should maintain like, oh, like what is being productive, and yeah, blame it, but in behind or something like that.
Yeah, I just shared one article. It's also quite similar to something related to solution architecting.
I think, yeah.
So if the other question was, if you come from that kind of corporate culture where you need to come up with the diagrams or the overview of the systems, but if you do not have experience doing it, is it good to tell people to that do it? Okay, it's a buzzword now. Let's go do all this stuff. So as blah blah blah. One of the points you raised is that without knowing the stuff, like without knowing the information, they can't just tell us that okay, let's go do it, right? I mean, if you have enough information, only then I can respect the decision. Without knowing the entire system, then that's why things start to get confused between the teams.
I think you just do something like experimentation. At least spend some time doing like incubator kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a different skill all of itself, right? Like you can experiment on new technologies to try it on, but remember all of these experiments has a cost. And is the company that is sponsoring these experiments, can they absorb failures? Because sometimes, like especially in a startup, it's an all or bust thing. You're banking everything here, and it's a very fine line where maybe you can experiment a bit, but these risks need to be in such a way that it's calculated, so it's more likely to succeed than not. Because if you fail, you cannot take big risks, because if you fail, the whole company goes bust. Whereas, for example, in a larger company, you can spin off an R&D department that takes huge risks, like Google does, and then just shut them off later on because it's not making money. But still, you get all of that knowledge, but then you can absorb the costs. So again, this is a special skill in of itself.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we don't realize is the risk management, how much risk this involves. Yeah, that's the one missing point. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think we need to wrap up now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, it's fine.
I hope you're not offended.
You're not that late, actually. So, anything to add? Like, Michael, anything you want to add?
No, good discussion. So I definitely want to try that bot thing to get more communication going on. That's always the hard part.
Yeah.
Biggest takeaway of Michael is to make a lunch roulette bot.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess.
I think he started coding just now. Right. So,
No, but it's good because the more I feel that the more that people know each other personally,
Yeah.
instead of just this yet another name that I have to talk to later on, um, it the shared experiences that you've been going through sets you on like you're more aligned basically because now you know
Yeah,
this person
exactly.
is a human being,
Yeah.
and that's why.
Yeah, I think it's a harmony among the team members. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you know the guy, you won't as easily get like offended or like, hey, you know, that guy is.
Or like you understand where they're coming
Yeah.
from, right? So you can put yourself into their shoes. Like why, like maybe you one of the stories that this person might have told you was that, oh, I deployed on a Friday and I spent all weekend fixing a deployment bug, and maybe that's the reason why he's against continuous deployment, where it can deploy on a weekend or on a Friday, because I don't want to fix bugs on the weekend during my holidays. When the point of the CI/CD is to prevent to remove those particular blockages, right? So because this person told you that story over lunch, that they wouldn't have told you otherwise on normal conversation, then you understand, oh, this is the reason why this person is against the CI/CD project. Let's talk to this person and say and tell them this is how we plan to mitigate the things that you've experienced from before, right? So because of those shared experiences, you know more. You have more information to make a better case and to uh, get these decisions to this,
Yeah.
like make him understand, for example.
Yeah. It's like building trust, trust
Yeah.
among each
It
other.
all goes down to trust.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because like initially, I actually didn't trust Manju because
Yeah,
because when I first met him, he actually introduced himself as another name, and he promised me an Elixir workshop, which he hasn't doing yet.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. So yeah. Anything you want to add?
I think that's it from my side.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Hopefully
So
nobody is offended.
yeah, that. So did we start on time at 10 or?
I started a bit late.
Mm,
10:05. Yeah.
okay, so still good timing, I
Yeah,
think.
good timing. Yeah.
So we'll all see you again next week.
Yeah. Yeah. See you guys next
Thank
week.
you so much.
And bye, folks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Enjoy.
Yes.